again, and welcome everyone to another panel conversation with our esteemed group of coaches. We have some regulars and some new faces on today. So I thought it's cool that we have a scaling up coach in Tel Aviv now, where I didn't live in Tel Aviv. I lived in Israel, but in Jerusalem. So welcome to the show, Liat Lazar.
Thank you very much. I'm so happy to be here. And hi, everyone from Tel Aviv.
Hi, everyone. We've had we had Omar, who's just across a little bit in Cairo. I've done a lot of work in the Gulf with others, so it's nice to connect with someone. And Judy's down in LA, and also dear friend, welcome Judy to the show. It's nice down there.
Bill, we're all going to have to hold hands and kind of do our hands across the world, right? One of these days, we can all hold hands together.
Oh, what a weird time.
This.
I don't know how it is for everyone else, but in the United States, between the COVID and the election, we are just on edge. Whatever side of the political spectrum you're on, it's a weird, weird time. I'm not sleeping well right now. And Daniel, originally from Mexico City, right?
Yep. Well, Monterrey. Born in Monterrey, raised in Mexico City.
Yeah. And raised in Mexico City. So, but now in Toronto. So welcome, eh?
Hey.
He's a Conexican now. He's Canadian Mexican.
That's correct.
Right, Dan? I'm
a NAFTA entrepreneur.
a new demographic block you got to check off.
So some reminders for everyone. My name is Bill Gallagher. I'm host of the show. I'm one of the 200 plus approximate scaling coaches around the world that do the whole scaling up shindig with our clients, help companies grow and scale, the entrepreneurs scale with them. We've done hundreds of shows like this. So we have not only conversations like this, but also with clients, with our gurus and experts and authors and that kind of thing on every subject to do with people, strategy, execution, cash, and even the leadership required, what I like to call the fifth decision, that helps a company grow and scale. And you'll find all of those shows and more at scalingcoach.com. Downloads of them, special offers, the tools referenced in them, as well as a free copy of the book Scaling Up. If you don't have one already, get it there. I'll send it to you for free. Just pay the shipping and handling for that. So scalingcoach.com for that. What's the number one phrase of 2020? You're on mute.
I thought that pivot is the number one phrase for 2021.
COVID. Or China virus.
COVID.
I didn't say it in the US. China virus.
Go away. So welcome. Glad to have it. Would you guys each say a little bit about kind of your, say a little bit more about your background? Judy.
I have been a coach, I guess formal coach for about 12 years, but I grew up, my strength is strategy. I understand how to read markets, how to find that unique white space that nobody else knows how to find, and rally the team around building kind of unique processes and activities to get there. I have a lot of experience in the green industry. About 60% of my clients are in the green industry. I've taken companies public on the New York Stock Exchange. I've created serious consortiums. I've done a lot of rebranding, but my emphasis is really on understanding how to read markets, create strategy, sometimes blow up business models, find the new, and help companies scale up.
Oh, that's really awesome. Key subject, I think, for a lot of us right now is enjoying our outdoor spaces. Yards, our public spaces, everywhere outdoors.
That talk about essential services, because that whole green area is, I mean, we can't find enough people to keep up with the workflow. It's just again, doesn't matter, young, old, rich, poor, right, black, white. Everybody loves the outdoors. It's one common thing I think that the whole world can unite around is really just the essence of what nature brings. So it's always been a great time to be in that industry, but it it is on fire, that industry. It's growing by leaps and bounds.
Yeah, I was really stressing about how little exercise and whatnot I got. So I started really looking as my birthday approached last month. And I found this new sport that I hadn't even seen, but I saw like one video and I was hooked before I even did it. Wing surfing or wing foiling is like surfing, but you get a wing instead of a sail or a kite. You just hold this like delta wing. So I'm so into this thing now.
Bill, it was one of the most unusual things I'd ever seen. I saw your pictures and your video, and it looked almost like something from a fantasy land. So I just wanted to know, while you were doing that, at any one time, did you see narwhal in your travels?
Funny aside, connecting the dots. When my family moved to Israel years ago when I was a boy, and just before my 13th birthday, and we lived there for a few years. And when we moved from Honolulu, from Oahu, actually, the North Shore, to Israel, people in Jerusalem were like, "Are you crazy? You moved from Hawaii here? That's insane." That's like a paradise. Here we have attacks and there's problems.
One of my dreams since I was small is to be in Honolulu one day. So you did the opposite part, yeah.
But Liat, come in, between you and Daniel coming from Mexico, the one thing, Mother Nature paints her beauty all over the world, right? Every single one of our countries, cities, towns, Mother Nature has taken her brush, right, and created this beautiful, right? These beautiful paintings and pictures. So that's the wonderful thing about nature.
Right.
So this was in the 1970s, and I brought with me my skateboard, which people looked at like it was insane. I'm trying to skate on things like architectural features. And then I found like one other guy with a surfboard in Tel Aviv and some of the mediocre surf in Tel Aviv, and we would go surfing there. But that was not very common.
Nice beaches, not like in California, but nice beaches. Not the same quality of surfing, but they struggle and they do it very well.
They had everybody playing that ping pong game on the beach.
Yeah.
Not stuff. I'm
Right.
like, oh, get in the water. What's the matter with you? Oh, all right, Daniel, you're up.
So Daniel Marcos, originally from Mexico, been an entrepreneur for 20 years. I did the first fintech in Latin America back in 1998. Grew it and sold it to Santander with around 1,200 employees. So very early in my career, I saw a really big scale up and understood a lot of what do I take to scale a company. And then my second business was a mortgage bank in the US that we shut down in 2007. Even before we got hit a year before, we were the subprime or subprime. And then my third one is the Growth Institute, the one that I'm scaling today. And I've been an entrepreneur, as I said, for 20 years, and then a CEO coach for the last 12, and helping companies do two things: scale their impact. That's what gives people freedom. That you put a goal and you achieve your goal. So we help them achieve their goals, but also reduce the drama. We really believe that scaling a company is hard, but scaling a company and enjoying the ride is way harder. So we focus on helping entrepreneurs do that.
That's awesome. And we'll talk more about the Growth Institute as we go through today's topics and that kind of thing. I want to welcome Liat more formally. Welcome and talk to us about your background.
So I'm coming from the HR areas. I was an HR executive for above 20 years. I worked in two of the 500 Fortune 500 companies. It's Abbott and Texas Instruments, and was part of two companies, the startup companies that did major scale. I'm very excited since I'm the first scaling up coach in Israel,
Yes.
and yeah,
And a woman.
Yeah, in a very masculine world, yeah. And so high tech is mainly my focus. Israel is also now, I don't know if you know, but Israel is what is known as the startup nation. We have for one person, we have 2,000. For 2,000 people, we have one startup, and we have a lot of inventions. Like exactly,
Amazing book.
good.
Amazing book.
So a lot of very substantial innovations were coming from Israel, like Waze, Cherry Tomato, Disconkey, and more. So I'm very happy to be here.
That's nice. Welcome to the show. And
we're lucky to have you on our team.
Thank you.
Now, of course, we need more scale-ups in Israel. Starting companies, and they're coming to California and other places to scale. We got to get more scaling going on in Israel. Make a difference for the country and for the region.
Lee, I was going to say, Liat, you may not know this, but the Israel, they're really known for incredible things they've done with irrigation. So I've worked with some companies that do that. So Israel has got some phenomenal technology and business models and products in the world of irrigation, which, of course, everything from feeding the world and keeping the world cool. Right. So they play a significant role in part of the world that I live in. So great companies out there.
That's one of the things that they mentioned on the Startup Nation book as one of the advantages. You guys have so little space in the world and it's so complicated around. They have to be self-sufficient, and you have to be extremely efficient with what you have. And that's why the irrigation, they become such great with irrigation. They just have to have all their capacities of food in their region. And that's what one of the things that becomes a great place to have entrepreneurship or build a tech company. I love the book. I think it was brilliant how they explain everything that happens and why we're having so many great technology products and companies coming out from Israel.
Right. Yeah. So this is one of my challenges to help, as Bill mentioned before, to help companies to scale, because most of the companies know how to do their first $3, $5 to $10 million, and then to reach to the 50 and to the hundreds. This is the big problem.
Well, figuring out who you are, what's unique about you, and what you've got to offer the world is probably our first topic of the day. Vern talks in his latest insights about sub-branding and the value of sub-branding your difference. So lots of people create sub-brands. Some do it well, some don't. But that pointing to the key differentiator is key to so many of us. And to be honest, sometimes, I don't know, when I'm working with clients, I find if they struggle to find a point of differentiation, then it really gets in the way of our continued work. How have you guys had, what kinds of experiences have you had with clients in their sub-branding and differentiation?
I'll jump in. And, Bill, you brought up a great point. One of the slides I had, one of my graphics people create that I use most often, and it's a very simple slide that all it says is, just because you say you're different doesn't mean you are, right? Because how often do you go into a client and you say, tell me about your business, tell me about your business, tell me about your top competitors. How are you different from everybody? And they repeat everything that everybody says. And you kind of have to tactfully say, well, let's talk about it. Doesn't company A do this? Yeah, right. Doesn't company B price like this? Yeah. Isn't company C output this same as yours? Yeah. Well, what's different? They're like, well, we're just better, right? We're just, I go, I hear that. I go, people are really smart today. They've never been more connected to information, right? I go, it's your job to prove it. I'm like, you haven't proven anything to me today, right? And so that's where you really have to peel back the onion. And quite often, I probably say about 85% of my clients, when I first start working with them, they all kind of give that, audio, look to each other, and they go, you know what? Maybe we're really not that different, right? And so then we have to start, right? We start peeling stuff away from the process to their marketing messages. Like, let's talk about your activities, right? And we kind of list, like, what are the most important attributes, the most important things to your customers? And let's put all the things that you're kind of doing here. And now let's look like, almost like those those great sales tools that cars do, right? They list 500 things that's in the car, right? And then they're competing cars, right? You see things that aren't checked off. And that's where we kind of start finding that. Or if not, we have to start creating that. But I mean, you hit the nail right on the head. Just because you say you're different doesn't mean you are. So,
and the second mistake I see they make is they just don't know how they're different. It's how that matters to the client.
Yes.
And that's for me the most painful thing. So, because, we're great, we're better, we have a great product. But like, do your client really matter? Does it really matter for them?
They care.
They care? Yeah.
Does it matter to them, and how does it benefit? I'm like, what's the impact? I go, it's not what's important to you. It's what kind of impact it has on those guys in a positive, negative, or mediocre way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found a lot of companies, even small ones, that are gathering in the room. They are about 20 people, and they want to differentiate themselves. But they usually, like you mentioned here, they start with the regular things. We are innovative. We have a great spirit. We care for people, and then you need to go and deep dive in what aspects as why people will come to you in opposed to others. What makes you so different? One of the companies that I work with, they came up with a differentiator that they're called we are legendary. It sounds very good. It's a big one, but actually, what does it mean? You ask the CEO, or I ask the CEO and the HR person, what does it mean? Let's break it out to be legendary. So it was a very hard work to break it down. We didn't complete it yet, but it's a process. I think this is what matters, that it's not a one-time to identify yourself. It's not a one-time shot.
The issue you're all kind of pointing to is there's an aspect of self-delusion, right? I like the way I look right here with the lights and the camera angle and all that. I feel pretty good about myself, right? And I think we do have a way of looking at ourselves in the mirror and at our companies and the way, we're better, right? And then there's this angle where you can kind of see my double chin and some of the things. And I'm like, I don't like that angle so much, right? I don't like that angle all the time. I like this one where I think I look younger. And the same thing with our company comes out and calls itself legendary. Maybe. Did a client ever call you legendary? Or have you just called yourself? We have political leaders who call themselves legendary. And some people are buying that brand and others are like, yeah, not so fast, buddy.
And I was going to say, to Liat's point, like she asked a great question, what does that mean? And also, like, I always go back to, give me examples of legendary outcomes, right? Like which one of your customers can I talk to? And they're going to tell me these legendary things that happen, right? And if the answer is like, right? It's, again, just because you say you're legendary doesn't mean you're legendary.
Yeah.
And maybe you are legendary, but please be aware of what are the parameters that makes you legendary. Let's define them and make them clear, not only to you, to others.
So Vern cites a couple examples in his thing. One of our big multi-billion-dollar successes, Rackspace, focused on fanatical support. Now, they took something that they were known for and that they built and invested in, and then they added branding to it, fanatical support, to talk about the lengths that they were willing to go to. In the U.S., in particular, we also have Southwest Airlines, who's sub-branded transparency, the idea of having no hidden fees and no hidden charges, the difference and we've had that kind of thing. And then we've had small companies as well. He cites one that talks about all things basement-y. And so they're focused on dealing with people's basements. We don't have basements much where I live, but in some parts of the country, right, they have basements.
Well, Bill, right? That's one of the things we always talk about, right? Create that word, right? Own a word and create a word. So one of the words that I created for my business, right? What do? Is we help companies scale up. And I thought about this for a while. And one of the ways I vet my clients are, we always think about that. Are you playing to win, or are you playing just to get by, right? And so I'm a really competitive individual. That's just something that's fun to me, right? I like to win. I like to work with people who like to win. And so, first of all, I could pretty quickly determine if somebody's playing just to get by and playing to win. So that's one thing, are you playing to win? And I say, what takes people to win is, right, it's all about that focus and discipline, right? Think about anybody who wins in anything, whether it's sports or business or their family life or anything, right? They're focused and they're serious and they're disciplined about it. And so what I always say is the people who want to work with me, right? If you want to work with me, you've got to be serious about scaling. So I came up with this word and I just call it scalarious. Are you scalarious? Are you serious about scaling up? And I'm like, I love that. I go, so that's it. I go, when people say, how do you qualify? I go, are you scalarious? And I go, that doesn't mean that you want to take an IPO. That doesn't mean you want to be $1 billion company. Sometimes it's taking somebody who's making $250,000 and they want to become a $3 million company. Or a $2 million company, or that 5 or 10 that want to go to the 50, or the 50 that want to break into the 100, or the 100 that wants to be the half. But again, as long as they are serious, right? They want that focus and discipline about scaling. They want to be scalarious about it. That's kind of what my sub brand has now become.
And one of the companies which I worked with had a double agenda, a double strategy. One, they wanted to be buy, but they didn't want that the employee will know about it, that the employees will know about it. So they had two parallel strategies. So it was really, crazy, And by the way, this is a company that I don't want to work with because transparency and being honest to employees is one of my values.
Yeah. What a difference it makes if you actually create a win for the employees, and then you can be honest about being acquired. Like, let's create a retirement for everyone. I worked with two partners some years ago. I won't say where, but to keep them confidential. But the two partners had very different ideas about the future, and they were really struggling to come together. One wanted growth, and the other was like, it's a good business. Let's leave it alone, and let's not bring risk into it. And one cared about the exit, and the other cared about the team and the legacy. And together, we found a way that the growth and the eventual sale could create a win for the team that enhanced the legacy, and then the two could agree on things. But that took quite a bit of conversation and work before they aligned on that mutual win. And then the BHAG became easy, and the pathway was totally altered by that, where before they were going to blow up.
It's important. It's always important to find that common ground, right? And in any business.
Yeah, and usually, when you have two founders, the other is the strength of the weakness of the others are the strengths of his partner. So it usually,
how to work together, right? It makes a difference.
Right.
And I get called a lot of entrepreneurs or 2 or 3 owners and said, "Hey, we want to hire you to fix the guys below." And I was like, "No, everything that's happening below, it's an extension of what's happening on top." So if there's disagreement or disalignment in the top, and it all starts with why we're here and the branding and all that, it trickles down and it becomes way bigger. So that's why it's so important to fix it at the top and make sure everyone's aligned and know exactly why we're here and how do we do things. And for me, the branding and the core values and everything, it's so important when we ask them all the questions to write the 1-page plan and the 7 strata. That's where they get all the pain because they just don't have that clear, and that's creating a lot of issues.
I think that what is very professional in scaling up that we are doing it with customers, but we are also doing it for ourselves to be very, very precise on our strategy, which gives you a lot of value then when you're going out to the customers and you know exactly what you want to achieve and who you are in a very profound way.
I have trouble with a client. It's often because the CEO doesn't want to do any work on themselves. They want to put some tools to fix the company, and they don't realize that they have the company they deserve right now, or you could say they deserve the company they have. And if we're going to scale up the company, we also have to scale your leadership and your approach as well.
Bill, that's a great point. I mean, again, I'm going to go back to my being sclerotious. It's that whole silver bullet mentality, right? How many people and they'll even say they're like, Judy, you just must have like one simple little tool where I can, you know what I mean? It's like I can just take the switch and flip it, right? And I always say, I go, I've got a lot of tools. I'm like, if you're again. Let's really talk about this. If you're looking for that silver bullet, right? If that's the amount of effort that you want to do, it's like you're willing to pay a little bit to flip a switch, right? That's part of your problem, right? You got to kind of really look at your company, right? Your people, your strategy, how your execution, your cash flow, all that, the market around you, right? In a really serious kind of objective way. But there's a lot of this subjectivity that there's this kind of this silver bullet or a trigger that they can flip or switch and everything's going to be okay. And that's just, if it was that case, if it was that easy, right? Every single business would be a great success. And that's just not the case. You do have to be focused and disciplined.
Next up is understanding what's going on in your world, right? Thinking about your local community. And I love that we have people I was down in Southern California a couple of weeks ago working with some clients. We've got the up and down the West Coast. We've got Daniel on the East Coast of the U.S. of the continent of North America.
North America, yes.
Yeah. And we've got Liat in the Mediterranean and Middle East. What's happening in your communities? Vern talks about this new book from Martin Babinec. Martin Babinec is former San Francisco EO guy, and TriNet was a company that we had in our backyard or started here. I guess he's originally from New York, but he was here when I met him years ago in our what was then called YEO, and he's got a new book out, More Good Jobs. He talks about getting related to and securing the base, understanding what's going on in your community, being able to do that. And it just occurs to me, like, it's really different. What's the job market like where you are and where your clients are? What's the business operating environment like? What are the rules? What are the ways that people are going right now? And I know it's been changing and so on. It seems almost more stable in Toronto, maybe. I know Israel's open, then closed, then all over the place.
Mainly closed, yes.
Mainly, right? And yet there's ways to work within, right? So businesses are still operating in different ways. What's the vibe like where you are and with the companies that you're working with? What are you noticing?
Yeah, every week it changes, from we are scheduling something to do online, and then we can move it to offline. So it really changes. I know I'm leading a community of startups, Microsoft startups, HR's leaders. So we see that in the beginning, we were every week on the phone or in the Zoom because in the beginning of the epidemic, because everyone wanted to know what's going on, how to operate, how to do things. And now when time goes, you see that the questions become more high level than on operational level, how to work from remote and things like this, where the common question and how to lead my people was something, but by the way, that was in the beginning, and it became more difficult now because you don't know how to operate in this situation. So leadership still become key to how to do it efficiently, and also to engage people when you are not clear every week what you are doing. So we have a lot of work here in this aspect to connect, to engage.
I noticed that around different places here, like as I moved from very far south in Southern California, they're like, hey, there's nothing going on. We're just going to act normal. And then progressively it gets a little more sheltered. But even in the Bay Area where I am, there's a great deal of retail, restaurants, all kinds of things open and operating, and people out in the streets. Not as many people in offices, but outdoor restaurants with separation, with masks walking in the streets. So they've taken over parking spaces and parking lots and converted them to outdoor seating. I don't know what's going to happen when the rain starts. And then you can go into shops, but you have to wash your hands and wear a mask and things like that. We just bought 3 patio heaters, right? So that we can still be outside and have some friends outside, and 2 pergolas so that we can do things. And I think that like figuring out how to navigate the time, that's innovation. That's entrepreneurial, right? To not to say it's open or it's closed. It's no business. It's unhealthy. It's like whatever. That black and white seems kind of silly now.
Bill, I was going to say, you kind of just hit it on the nail. I mean, it's in California, and again, since I spent about 60% of my time in that space, the amount of pools that are being built right now. I mean, pool contractors they just, and we're not talking like inexpensive pools. I mean, we're talking, right, kind of starting points at $200,000 projects are just on fire. You talk about, pergolas, you talk about all things outdoor living. I mean, people, especially, and again, California has a tendency to set the trends in that, what we call ODL, outdoor living, but everything from where traditionally it was just kind of, building an outdoor fire pit where you can sit, and then it became the outdoor kitchen, right? That is still very, very popular. Now it's the outdoor, right? Now it's the outdoor office, right? It's the outdoor edible area where there's so much of this major trend of sustainability about, right, growing your own food, or having your landscaper, right? Do what we call agriscaping, right? Which is just really growing, right? Fruits, vegetables, herbs, right? To create. So, and again, the outdoor kitchens have become much more expansive. Outdoor reading areas and meditative spots, outdoor sports areas, right? So all things outdoor. I mean, people are just saying, hey, we're going to take this, and this is going to increase our property values, and we can stay out here longer. The other thing is you probably want to invest in all things canopy, right? Because to your point, I mean, wherever you can kind of, be outdoors, 365 days a year, whether it's, right, you go to that, bring the gym outdoors and you just put a canopy over it, take the restaurant, right, put a canopy over it. If you're right, if you're a hair cutter or something, get outside, put that canopy. I mean, I've seen more canopies, and I started I started taking a look at that. The other thing is look at the pet world, right? How many people now are like, right, dogs, cats. I mean, petscaping and the pet world has been a really, multi-billion-dollar business. Now people are saying, hey, you know what? Now we really want to kind of, bring have that pet that we never could, right? And build a space for them outside, outside our yard. So anything that you can do in outdoor living at your house, whether you want to create your home into an office, a caregiver's room, or workshop, a kitchen, a meditative area, an outdoor living room, a Zen place, all those things are growing by leaps and bounds out here.
Yeah, it's such a, Daniel?
So here in Toronto, we haven't had snow yet, but we're very close to. And the restaurants, the only thing that was open, as you said, they got one lane of the street, and they were having all the tables on the outside. And the only place you could go and have lunch outside was if they had a patio or they were using outside. Now they can't because of the cold. So now they're shutting all the restaurants.
Don't you get the patio heaters? My friends in Toronto said, we're going to barbecue until March.
Let's see if we're able to do that with the snow. But yes, a lot of them are getting these, as you said, the heaters outside, and they're going to try to stay open as much as they can.
The other day, patio heaters that I bought one like a year ago was like about $130, $150. Today, they're being sold for $300 to $600, and they're out of stock.
Wow.
We looked and looked, and we found 3 more to buy from someone that had bought too many. And
so RVs, they're completely sold out.
Yeah,
bicycles sold out. I tried to buy a bicycle, a 24-wheel, whatever, for my kid. No bicycles. Like it took me like a month to find a bike. Like It's a bike. In Toronto, you could have there's 50 stores or 100 stores.
Soon when the snow comes, the bikes will not sell as much.
Sorry?
I was going to say, take a look at office equipment, right? I mean, right. I just, we had to get a new printer, right? So I've always had a nice home office, but again, it's a home office, it's a home school right now. So, I wanted to get a really, nice upgraded, a special type of laser printer. Well, I'm getting it, but, normally I could have gotten one in 48 hours, right? It's kind of a 2-week ordeal now. And everyone's like, oh my God, why don't you try to get this? Because if you want that printer in 2 days, it's going to take you 2 weeks. So anything with technology, from certain type of laptops, printers, all that stuff is, our houses, you take your house and what used to be a home, you take a pie chart. And again, it's a hospital, it's an office, it's a school, it's a
restaurant,
right? It's a restaurant. You name it. So it's a little bit of everything today.
Well, we're on the subject of transforming the way we do things. Daniel, talk to us about Growth Institute and the MBD course and the Master Business course and the things that you're doing there.
So 8 years ago, Vern and I designed a program for mid-market companies. And what we found is that online, there's a lot of great training for startups. There's a lot of great training for big corporations. There's nothing in the middle. If you already passed the $3-5 million mark, no one looks at you, and you have to go the kind of chasing for thought leaders, but operate in different platforms, different formats, different pricing. Everything is different. So let's put all together in the same format, same structure. And we created the Growth Institute 8 years ago. That up to today, we've trained over 50,000 executives from 10,000 different companies in 68 countries around the world. All mid-market companies doing $1 million, $5 million, 10, 50 million, 100 million, and we had a couple of billion-dollar companies have trained with us. And what we do is we said, hey, we help them do 2 things. I started: scale your impact and reduce your drama. That's what an entrepreneur and a C-level team would like to do all the time. Our best-selling program, it's of course Scaling Up. And by the way, in the pandemic, Scaling Up revenue doubled at the Growth Institute, precisely because Scaling Up allows you to be way more nimble company and refocus, re-strategize, and everything. So some of the classes are not that used anymore. In the case of Scaling Up, more than double its demand, precisely because of that. And one thing that we do very different from the rest of the e-learning companies is we don't just give you a course. It's a program we help you guide you to implement an improvement in your company. In the case of Scaling Up, it's a 3-month program. It's a 13-week program that we take around 60 or 70 companies together, and they get videos with Vern. They get coaches helping you go through the process, coaching, all that. And then the masterminds, we put you together with all these other companies, learning together and implementing together in the companies. And what I hear all the time said, hey, the videos with Vern were great. Instead of reading a book, getting everyone the same day watching a video was amazing. Then the coaching calls and the group coaching calls really gave me a path and a process to implement. But what really gave me the juice was the masterminds, because we put them in these smaller groups with other CEOs or other C-level executives all over the world. And as an example, Liat, we had the other day, I was teaching a mastermind. We had a CEO of an e-learning company in Israel. We had this lady in Iran. Wow. She was an operations manager in Iran. People in the US. I was in Toronto. This guy in Argentina. And we were all learning together, implementing together. And we kind of like, what? Wait. Iran, Israel, Mexico, the US. We were kind of freaking out. And we all said, hey, we're all C-level executives. We all are trying to implement Scaling Up. Let's help each other. And it was awesome. I just loved it. And that's what we really built. These communities of leaders implementing together and having improvements together in their company. So Scaling Up is the main class that we teach, or the one that has the most demand. But then we have 100 other programs. And the MBD that Bill Gallagher mentioned is, I did my MBA at Babson, a really good school, #1 business school for entrepreneurs around the world. But it gave me a lot of tools for critical thinking and analysis, but no tools to operate my business. So we said, here, we're going to give you a master's degree to really give you the tools to become an expert on scaling companies. So we teach Scaling Up, top grading, great game of business, sales with Jack Daly, marketing with everyone Scott. We're recording now a class with Coach Capitalism and a couple of other really, really cool classes to help you become an expert on how to scale companies.
So Daniel, you just gave me an idea for a new sub brand, right? You talked about all these different companies, kind of global. So now this is globalization. It's global collaboration. So it's right. So right there you go. There's your next one. It's global and collaboration. That's pretty much what we're doing.
And we say we have to do edutainment. We have to do education through entertainment. People don't want to just learn; they want to learn and have fun.
Right. Take life too seriously, and what is it worth, right?
In our online workshops, in our remote planning sessions, and all these kinds of things, like bringing some playfulness, some levity to it, whether it's my cowbell that I rang earlier, or playing some music in the thing, or bringing Elmo into the conversation, like just being silly, being lighthearted, being playful, being human, bringing that an aspect of play and entertainment to all of it makes a huge difference, right? In engaging. Everything that's just cut and dry all the time is hard for maybe not everyone, but for many of us.
People are burned out of having so many Zoom calls. So just make them different. Have some uniqueness.
People that don't like to laugh and have fun are the people that you really need to stay away from in both your personal and your professional life, because they're not quite right. So
well, and everybody has a different idea of what's fun, right? Like, the places but being lighthearted, being playful is a quality that's universal.
Yes, it is.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So next up is better decision making. Vern talks about a new book, 7 Strategies for Better Group Decision Making by Torben Emmerling and Duncan Reuters. And they cite in it some of the issues that get in the way of good decision making and what makes for bad. And this one just hit me head on. Keeping the group as small as possible, having contrasting viewpoints, maybe even having a designated devil's advocate, and watching out for just blindly following an expert. My wife likes to say that my son and I both use the voice, like an authoritative tone that sounds like we know what we're talking about and that we have information behind us, but really we're just making shit up, which I think is somewhat true. And then bringing collective responsibility to that. But I think the biggest one that I notice when our teams struggle with this is that group size. They'll be like, I coached one company, actually, fintech company that achieved $1 billion valuation, and they could not stop. There were too many founders and too many voices. And I'm like, you guys are taking more than 4 times as long as any company I work with to reach a decision. And they wanted to have 27 people in the room. I'm like, we need 7, not 27. Sure. And get 20 out of this room, have them give the others, and trust a few. How does it go with your teams in terms of having productive conversation, getting the team size right? What are you finding over time and even right now?
In one of the companies that I was invited to a company to do a brainstorm with the management, they wanted to think, they had a huge problem on turnover in a specific department, in the production department. So we came out with a process and with a problem identified and come with ideas. But in the end of the session, I asked, I'm missing someone from the real people from the production to hear how they feel about it. We are talking in this high level, but we need to also get down to a lower level. So we did another session with the people that are really working there, the managers, and then we went down to the level below. But sometimes, I think this is part of the problem. There is no connection. Someone is doing the decisions and doesn't do the work afterwards to make the people that needs to be part of the decision connected and to buy them and to brainstorm with them the problem. So I understand what you say. I think that sometimes we are missing the next level of the implementation. And it's not that we only need to think about it from the executive level, but to go a level down and another level down in order to engage and to hear more ideas, the real ideas, with the problem, with the people with the problem, that facing the problem.
It's great what you're saying, because we see like the need to share information down, but then also to make sure that we're getting the information coming up if we're thinking about a traditional pyramid, but that or out to in or however you want to think about it. But there's a lot of information sometimes in the front line, and you see it like when you make an important change or you fire somebody who's a problem, and everybody goes, "Oh my God, like, how long did that take you?" And you're like, "Oh, I didn't know that was a problem for you." that person was a problem.
Exactly.
And I think the other thing that's really important too about the size of any type of group, it's always like, what problem are you trying to solve, right? What problem are you trying to solve? What opportunity are you trying to seize? And then to ask yourself a question like, what skill sets or experience are required to help us get those outcomes, right? And sometimes, like when you just like throw it out to everybody, right? It's like all of a sudden you kind of look around and you say, like, half the people in this group don't have any experience in that at all, right? And so therefore, like, why are they here? I mean, I'll give you an example. One of the things that makes me cringe is when I'm working on projects that involve websites, right? And like an owner will say, let's throw it out to our employees. Let's get everybody's opinion on the website. I'm like, oh my God, like, here we go. You're just letting the fire hose out. And all of a sudden, some people just don't like something because I don't like the color red. I don't like this picture. That reminds me of something that it's like, okay. It's like sometimes you'll say to people, I'll tell you what, take all those ideas and we'll just kind of put them together and see what it looks like with all their input, right? And you'll put together a website, right? Or a video, some kind of learning tool. Say, okay, do that. Put all those things together. Now take a look at it. And it looks like, people say, that looks like junk. Exactly, right? Because so-and-so like yellow doesn't mean we should put yellow, because yellow really is awful here, right? Because it's diluting your product, right? So I always say to people, I'm all about teamwork. I'm all about collaboration, but ask yourself, right? What kind of skill sets, what kind of experience that those people can help and add to it. And it doesn't matter what their title is. I always say to people, I don't care what this guy or gal's title is. I want to take a look at what kind of experience, right, do they have and what kind of skill set. Those are the people that are really, really going to be helpful, right, in solving this specific problem or seizing this opportunity because they've done it before or they've got familiarity with it. And that really, again, and it's true, right? The smaller the amount of voices, kind of the quicker you can make the decisions, the more, even just from a time perspective, right? You've got to evaluate all that input. And that's another thing, right? How much time do we have to get before we've got to solve this problem? Or how much time do we have before we've got to seize this opportunity? And if you have 100 people, it's going to take you that much longer to process all that information as well.
So whenever you're explaining that, Bill, came up, I don't know if you guys read this book, Teams, and that's precisely what they are alluding to. General McChrystal, when he became the commander of Special Forces, they said we had capacity to do one attack every 15 days in the U.S. When he left, they were doing 15 attacks a day. And precisely it was because the way they changed their teams. And they did smaller teams. Indeed, Google came up with a study that the perfect size is 4.6 team members. Above that, you start having diminishing returns. So everything below adds more than one. After 4.6, you get diminishing returns. But most importantly, have team members with unique abilities. As an example, in the Army in the US, they had a group of people that came into houses, let's say, and then they have one group of people that were long-range shooters, and they had another people expert in bombs. And I said, no, we're going to make an attack team that has one bomb expert, one long distance, one short distance, one runner, whatever. And that team went and did an attack. And that made the team way better. When you're making a decision, it's the same thing. What you said, Judy. Let's get the small team that really have knowledge of what they have to do and get them to move fast and take a decision fast. And I usually see they have better decisions. But I always tell people, every democracy has a president. So there's one that's going to take the last decision. We're all going to collaborate and give a lot of ideas and all that, but there has to be one at the end that said, I heard everything, this is what we're going to do. Usually it's the one with the most experience or the highest rank in the group or the discussion. And usually that helps you to get better decisions.
Yeah. Adam Grant, if you remember, Adam Grant was referring in our last Leading the Recovery Summit about the brainstorming method, that we are all falling into a pitfall, that we are bringing everyone together to the room. Everyone needs to bring their great idea to discuss it. And the people that are usually with a high self-esteem and they are talking first. And then the others that, less feel comfortable are the ones that are usually don't raise their ideas. So he came with a recommendation to do a brainstorm separately. You need to come with the topic, discuss it. Everyone will need to think about it in advance, and then join together into the meeting room and the conference and raise your ideas to avoid the misleading of the one that are taking the stage very easily with their ideas.
Let me give a plug now, a really self-serving plug for our coaching.
Go for it, Bill. Go for it.
200 coaches around the world, not just me. I'm one of the coaches, but maybe even like any decent coach can substantially elevate the leadership of your team and the quality of your decision-making precisely because of this. And I only have to look in the mirror to understand this and know this, and I think many of our listeners will do the same. I started my companies because I was easy to speak, because I was a little more dominant. Being easy to speak and dominating the room, starting the conversation, then soon inhibits the growth of the company. And I'm totally guilty of this. I love being at the front of the room. I love having the big mic because I do like to talk and I'm ready to speak first. But it doesn't make the best decisions. And it doesn't mean we get all the perspectives in the room. And the coach helps you to shut up and speak less. So if you're the CEO or the founder, you started the company with your voice probably. And now to get everyone else's speaking and to get all the perspectives in the room, we have to get you speaking last, and the coach can help you to do that. Not just by being in the room and facilitating, but even some of our methods, like most of our coaches will have people either fill out a survey or bring up sticky notes with their ideas or use one of the online sticky note tools to throw ideas out written first so that everybody in the room, introvert, extrovert, quiet, vocal, like everybody gets their ideas out at once. We see the natural alignment. We see the breadth of the ideas. People are heard and appreciated instead of just one bossy, noisy person like me or you.
So whenever we start a conversation, planning session, I tell the CEO, I'm going to go to you last. And they try to jump all the time. I'm like, last. Yep. They feel bad. At the end, they love it.
Yes.
The process is uncomfortable. But they know when the result comes, they said, this is the best thing we could do.
Yes.
And I also believe that for engagement of the team members, it's really powerful. If they came up with a plan, they're so committed to execute it and the plan be a success because they said, hey, I was part of the decision. I was part of the planning. If I was part of it, I have to make sure it's a success. If not, I'm going to look weak. So the commitment to getting the result is
ownership, right?
Ownership. Correct.
Yeah.
And I think the role of a great coach too, it's almost like you're a combination of a scientist or an archaeologist. I mean, recently we had my dear friend, and actually I coach him, Rob Sorcher, right, who just gave a great talk to us a couple of weeks ago. Wow. Right. And Rob, Rob is the guy who brought Breaking Bad to TV and Mad Men, and he's won 4 Emmys. I think he's been nominated for 22 or 23 Emmys. Just a brilliant, hardworking, wonderful human being. And he and I talk about this all the time, right? That people think in order to be creative, right, come up with great ideas, like you have to be kind of in an art-centric world, right? Which he is, right? I mean, right, whether it's Cartoon Network or the studios that he's helped, lead and head up. But it's not about that, right? Everybody is creative. And so we always talk about where does that cross between the science and the art of business, right? Business is both an art and a science. And so it's our job to really kind of be that archaeologist that really digs, finds that individual to be able to dig out that creative side, whether it's somebody in a field or in technology or in design or in the math side of it or in the engineering side of it, right? Where is that creativity and really tap into that, right? And allow them to say, you are creative, right? Let's hit those creative nerve centers and bring that out. But if we start, if we're the doers and we're the talkers, it's going to be very difficult to do that. So I always say, you kind of put on your scientists, your archaeology, when you're looking at the business, we really got to kind of dig into that and find out where is that creativity in every single person. And therein lies, like when you find those creative nerve centers, say, hey, this gal is brilliant in the engineering side. This guy over here, is fantastic in the design side of our business model. This person is wonderful in the sales side or the communication side. We really kind of tapped into their creative nerve centers, and then bring those teams together and make things happen.
Yeah, that's kind of like the special forces teams, right? Who are the specialists, right? If we want our companies to be differentiated, we want the individuals on the teams to be differentiated. We want that difference all over the place to focus in on specialists who could do unique things better than anyone else can do.
Yeah, the SEALs, the Rangers, right? Whoever, right? Like, who are those specialty groups, right? Absolutely.
Talking about bringing teams together, before we move on, Daniel, are you helping to produce this masterclass in Dallas?
Nope. That's an event Vern is leading. We're helping with a lot of the promotion and all that. But that's so Vern, and let me tell you a bit of story. Vern's been doing the Scale Up Summits and the Growth Summits for 15 years or so. And in the summits, we get all these great thought leaders. And a lot of people were asking more of Vern time. And Vern, because he was trying to be nice and give more space to the thought leaders, he rarely speak. He was just kind of a MC. And over the years, we heard a lot of clients saying, hey, we want to hear more of Vern. Yes. So this is going to be Vern 80% of the time at the summit. And we're going to work on scaling up. Instead of getting all these other methodologies that play well with scaling up, this is going to be all about scaling up, all about implementing scaling up. So Vern's going to be on stage probably 70% of the time, and the other thought leaders will complement and get deeper into the scaling up for decisions to help companies implement scaling up better. But it's going to be for you to go with your team if you want to implement scaling up and have everyone at the same level of knowledge and really work with your teams, because there's going to be a lot of work time. There's going to be a lot of Vern teaching on stage and then giving you some homework, some work to do with your team, and you're going to run with that. And this is, of course, our first event after COVID in Dallas, Texas. It's a state that is fairly open. It's not as cold as other states. So we expect there's going to be less. And the hotel is crazy how many things they're doing to keep people safe, the spaces and all that. By the way, it's going to be limited to way less attendees and companies than the summits before. So there's a lot of really, really big space between the tables. And there's going to be just you in your table with your team and no one else, and at least 6 feet from other tables. So that way we have people that are safe. We're going to take all kinds of precautions. But we get a lot of teams saying, hey, I love what you do. I really need a space to go with my team and learn and have a discussion. So we're inviting companies to be there to prepare for 2021.
So this is an in-person event. If you're hungry for an in-person event, you're comfortable with an in-person event, this will be in-person Dallas, December 8 to 10, going deep on the core of scaling up with Vern. And you can go with, it's designed to go with a senior team. They are taking a number of measures to keep you safe, quite a few, but you will in the end be in person indoors. So just make sure that you read up on the measures they're taking and you're comfortable with it. But if you're hungry for that, and we know a ton of people are, then this is a good opportunity for you if that's what you're looking for.
If you want the online, it's a scaling up master course at the Growth Institute. If you want to go live, this is the option for companies that want to go live.
Yeah. So a mix of the two. There'll be a link in the show notes that follow on the audio release of this and later in the video release, not here with the live. And then, of course, you can get in touch with us for a link and any codes or special offers that we've got. I'll send you a link. Just drop us an email about the Dallas class to info@scalingcoach.com. And Lucy, our show producer, will hook you up with what you need if you need to do that sooner. So let's talk about women, powerful women in business. The most powerful, the Fortune's annual list is out. And I don't think, here's the thing. We were just talking about the diversity of perspective and getting all that kind of thing. And yet too many company leadership teams and boardrooms look a lot like me, middle-aged white guys, right? Running things. And we make a real effort to make sure that we get a broad mix of people when we have our panel conversations, and we think there's value in it. And we see again and again, the research shows that diverse companies outperform the other companies, that getting a broader perspective makes a difference in your market performance, because the world that we serve out there doesn't all look like me. So, I'm owning up for being a very mainstream looking straight white guy. So most powerful women in business. Who are your favorites on the list? Who do you notice? Who stands up for you?
By the way, interesting. Sheryl Sandberg went down to 8th place.
Yeah.
Couple of them.
He's been having a tough time.
YouTube as well. Yes.
But hey, interestingly, number 1. CEO of Accenture, Judy Sweet. I know very little of her, but it's crazy that a consulting company is number 1 with this woman. I thought that was very interesting.
I don't think we hear enough of in a company that we hear tons of the male founder, Gwynne Shotwell, president, COO of SpaceX, right?
Never heard.
Doing amazing things. And who runs all the operation? Gwynne Shotwell. And we don't hear enough of her in this world. So Julie Sweet, CEO of Accenture at the top. The international list, Emma Walmsley. That's a tongue twister for me to say.
I was going to say one of the reasons I love, number 1 Accenture is because, it is a consulting, but it's, such a service industry. But think about it. There's not an industry that it does not touch, right? So, I mean, it's one of those things. It's kind of like the melting pots of all consulting firms, right? Where, this individual not only has to know how to execute on service, but really have an understanding of such a broad diversification of all the industries that they touch. And that's a big, that's a big job for anybody. And if you think about it, right, you think about right now, we always talk about D&I, diversification and inclusion. I mean, that company is all about diversification in the sense of there is not an industry that they don't touch or they have to know about. So I thought that was really a great tell-all to have her selected.
Well, huge gains being made in something. The new CEO of UPS, Carol Tomei, comes from Home Depot CFO role. Who else do we Jane Fraser, CEO of Citi now, number 6 on the list. So we've got major banks, major consulting, transportation, Walmart CEO Judith McKenna. So quite a bit now.
I was going to say, let's go back to what we talked about earlier in the show, right? What we basically do is we're trying to identify and solve problems, fix a pain point or an opportunity. Look at with UPS. What's one of the biggest constraints in business on a global basis? Right? Just getting your stuff to its place. Why? Because everybody is using those kind of logistical and delivery services, right? They're ordering online to get it. I mean, think about here, right? They're talking about Christmas and Hanukkah, all the holidays. If you didn't order your stuff already, you'll be lucky if you get it. So, one of the biggest problems right now globally is getting your product to that space because that delivery channel is slammed, right? And here again, we now like put a woman in the driver's seat, every pun intended, right, of UPS to drive and try to fix that big problem. The other one, right, you're talking about with Citibank, right? What's one of the other biggest pain point in the world and for people personally, right? Their financial health, right? So here again, we put a woman, right, to solve one of the biggest challenges in financial health. And even look at in that list, how many of those women in those top groups are also in the healthcare space, right? Which is another big thing, right? Right now, we started out the show, the biggest problem, right? What do we think about? The word is COVID, right? It's about your physical health, your financial health, right? Solving those problems. And women have been really designated to those roles in every single one of those situations. So I think it's a great tell-all to women's strength and capabilities.
Yeah, you said business is very male dominated in Israel now. How do you see that changing right now? What's happening? I know many of the people kind of in the entrepreneurial space, I know more women in Israel.
Yeah. Honestly, that's the reason that I didn't comment when you came with the discussion, with the topic for the discussion, because I don't see so much change. I know that there is we see more female in the universities, in the technical lectures, like the computer science, which there are really, I think, around 50% from the population. If you know Dan Ariely, Professor Dan Ariely, he did is doing some research, and he has a company that tries to predict and tries to change he wanted to track the reason why females, why girls are not are in a certain point in a certain point they change their direction from what they are from science. So yes. It goes around the 16 when they are 16. So in this junction, he tries to understand what makes them change their direction, and he's doing all kind of research around this. But yeah, I think that, if I'm thinking, more broad, yes, we see more female in the computer science faculties, definitely. In the higher hierarchy, I see less, honestly, a lot of in the HR positions. But in the pharma industry, it's different.
More people-oriented, traditional role for...
Right. And in the pharma industry, you can see more, it's a female dominant.
I went to a special technical high school in Israel, and we had computer science and circuit design and nuclear engineering and electrical engineering and stuff in my high school. And we had one young woman that I can remember, one girl in the whole high school. And I used to remember when I was very excited to go to this very special high school. You could go for 6 years and get your college degree, and we were right next to the university in Jerusalem. But I would be so excited to go to my old friend's high school across town because they had lots of girls. I was like, wow, really?
So it didn't change so much in those faculty which you mentioned.
Sorry.
I'd love to point out some of the work that we've heard from our friend and colleague Katika Roy. Remember, she spoke last year, and Katika Roy is doing this incredible work on the significant delta in pay for women versus men. But she's really a groundbreaking woman who's really taking a look at the financial disparity. And I would suggest you do any of those kind of readings. I mean, I'd love to throw a plug to the green industry. I'll tell you right now. I mean, I just talked about how that industry is growing by leaps and bounds, and yet we only have about 10% of our industry is really represented by women, and yet if you look at it, it is so aligned to STEAM, that's science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. So any women who have got those skill sets and passion in those elements, we've got, a multi-billion dollar industry that's growing by leaps and bounds, and reach out, and we'll we'll align your passion with your profession. But that's another great opportunity. But I want to call out great women like Katika Roy, who's just doing a lot of work on the disparity and how we get to parity between pay for men and women.
Katika Roy was on the show before, and go back and find that episode to hear her talk more in depth. But she talks about the value of diversity, making your company more diverse, what it brings, and not just promoting or accelerating women, but the whole range of diversity in the company, and the lack of equity, even sometimes for men, in being able to take leave, family leave, and that kind of thing, to play a role in their family life. Vern talks about something that I think we're seeing right now, and in your sales process. And I've seen quite a few of our client companies' sales process disrupted in this time, and they're still grappling with how to keep selling, depending on whether I think the consumer direct sale has been going well online if you're selling online, not maybe more impaired if you're in some kind of traditional retail and have distribution issues. But the value of synchronous communication, and he talks about not leaving the thing open. So creating questions and opportunities for follow-up conversation, keeping the conversation going, and holding something back to answer instead, to follow up the next conversation and keep it going, so that we don't assume that people got something, or that we're not leaving something in that way. I don't know. I feel like this is something that needs more attention, modifying the sales process with our teams right now all over the place.
It is. That's one of my qualifiers, Bill. Just so when people say, hey, could you put together a proposal as how you can help us? We talk about that because, again, each one of those, those documents, it's a living document, is so different, because that's the whole point, right? We're trying to find that differentiation for that organization. And as such, there should be no such thing as a kind of a templated proposal. And I talk to my clients about that. And what I talk about in the end is I say, look this is going to look something that it's going to look like something that you've never seen before, because it's going to incorporate who you are, but more importantly, where you want to be. So it's going to be very, very rich with data. It is going to be a working document. And the reason, and I tell them, we're going to go through it together. This is not something I'm going to send you guys ahead of time, and I want you to look, noodle over and go to the bottom and look at a price. So I said, this is going to be a session that we're going to have. And I always say, hey, and I always go in the mind, again, I vet my clients so carefully that I already assume I've gotten that job. And I always say to them, hey, in the end, the worst case scenario, you're probably going to get an hour of really, good free consulting, because that's what it ends up being, right? It's very much a living and an educational document, and they're learning as they're going through the process. And in the end, 98, 99% of the time they said, oh my God, I feel like just going through this document was a working session. And I said, because that's exactly what it was. It was a working session. And again, and if you choose to take this to the next step, we'll work together. And if not, nothing, you've lost nothing. You just got a great, a kickoff working session together. So that's how I work, and that's how I've dealt with that.
I think that the topic that you raised is something that a lot of companies doesn't talk about. It's something, it's more easy to speak about leadership and how we can solve some things, but sales and how to approach it in this, and do some pivot and some thinking about how we are doing. It's something that I don't hear a lot, and I know that a lot of companies are struggling with this because salespeople are very, very trained in doing what they do, but they are usually, they have their 1 or 2 tricks pony that they use, and suddenly it doesn't work anymore. So I think it's something that while we are doing the strategy sessions, it's a very, very good point to discuss it. And this is what we are doing to find out how we are doing the sales right now in this period, during this change.
What we found is if the companies that really understand their clients' pains and really understand how their pains change have been able to communicate better and be able to keep their sales. But yes, a lot of them, they were used to having a sales process that they were taking their clients to have lunch and just build their relationships. And because of that, they own the sale. Today, you can't do that. All the things that you used to do around it, you just can't do it. You have to do in Zoom or in a non-asynchronous sale. And if you don't get into the discussions the clients are already having in their mind, you won't be able to win. And we've seen companies that they already knew that and took it to a next level and are completely killing the market. And there's some companies that had no idea, and you see their sales coming significantly down. Judy, you were mentioning this the other day. I have a client that sells office equipment. So when all of this happened, I called him. He's like, "What are you going to do? That's no one's going to be in their office, right? Who's going to be remodeling offices?" He's 20% up this year, and he was crazy.
What did he do?
So he came to his clients and said, "Hey, you're going to have to send your employees to work home. They don't have a space to be productive. Let me help you build a space for you to be productive at home." And we begin building space at home for their employees to be productive.
So furniture, desk, chairs, monitor arms, monitors, printers, scanners, things like that at home.
Starting with comfortable chairs. How many hours are you spending now sitting in your chair in your home office? Like this chair, I spend 10, 12 hours a day. Now, being in a very comfortable chair, it's like you pay whatever for that. I mean, in my company, we paid off chairs for all my employees because no one has a comfortable chair to be 8 hours a day sitting down in their house. Right. So if you really understand your client's pain, then you're able to say, "Hey, your pain was in the office, now it's in their house. Now we have to start all over again." Sales are completely up.
So same topic. I want to talk in just a minute about how to make online events and meetings great. So hold your shares and thoughts on that for just a second. Let me give a few shout outs before we talk about making online events and meetings better. If our show helped you, you could do something for us. Give us a review. Type up your comments and thoughts about the show on either Apple Podcasts or wherever you get the show, or on YouTube or wherever it is. Of course, you can subscribe and you'll get notices of them every week. The new shows come out in audio on Wednesday mornings. The live streams come out all different times, but you'll get them by subscribing there. If you want to share it with somebody else, that's a nice thing to do as well. If you'd like to drop us a line, or if you'd like some help finding a coach, send an email to info@scalingcoach.com. As I said at the top of the hour or the top of the show, if you'd like to look at for past episodes with people like Katika Roy, or on the subject of conscious capitalism, or any of the things that we've been talking today, all of that you'll find at scalingcoach.com. That's easy for me to say. Right. As well as I'll give you a copy of the book, Scaling Up, for free. I'll send to you anywhere in the world. You just pay the shipping and handling, and it's yours. If you'd like to help finding a coach, that kind of thing, we've got the 200 coaches around the world, and I'm happy to help you find one that fits kind of whatever vibe you're looking for, as well as being nearby to you. I want to give special thanks to Lucy Summers, who produces the show and gets everybody organized and works behind the scenes to make things work with our show and promotes it after the fact and all that. The show is edited by Albert Burge at Podfly Productions. Our show notes are written and compiled by Ayn Kodina and then proofread by Tim McGowan. I want to give special thanks to Vern Harnish, author and creator of the Scaling Up Framework and the original Rockefeller Habits. Thanks to everyone. So back to this idea of virtual events. You said, all of you in different ways, I think during the show have said that you're sick and tired of Zoom. And so what are you doing to make it better? Vern points us to a book by David Meerman Scott about standout virtual events, how to create an experience that your audience will love. So what are you doing to make your events better, and which of his tools and approaches are you using?
So I'll say for me, it's less about, it's less about the channel that we're using, because again, we need something where we can all, right? There's so much technology we can use where we can, right, where we can come together, right? Bill, look at the system you're using. To me, it's just like anything. It's when you have a virtual event, what goes into it, right? What goes into any event? So the things that I always think about, first of all, it starts with the subject at hand, and again, and the people, their skill set and their expertise. So make sure you've got great personalities who know their stuff. Like that to me is, no matter what you're doing, no matter what you're talking, have thought leaders, have subject matter experts who are experienced, who can point to a lot of different things, right? So again, sometimes it's, it's like, oh my God, it was a cool setting, but like the people didn't know what the heck that they were talking about. So, right. So whatever your subject is, make sure you get people who understand and are subject matter experts. The other thing is, you talked about it too, right? Like have fun, right? And so like David Scott Meerman, he talks about almost like kind of give it like that show look, right? That you can have fun with, where you're inviting guests. Remember the old show, talk shows, the Merv Griffin and the Mike Douglas, and right, like and look at how many talk shows we have today. Kind of give it that sense. We've done spoofs, like without kind of giving some of my clients stuff away. We've done some of like the really fun shows, like the big HGTV shows, right? Like Love It or Leave It, right? Like The House. And we've taken our tool like Love It or Loathe It, right? So and we talked about things in the company that people, or ideas that some people love and others think it's a terrible idea. So we've done sessions of, okay, we've taken two personalities, like fun personalities, a guy and a gal, right? And okay, we're going to talk about, are they going to love it? Are they going to loathe it, right? And so we've done those kind of spin-offs. We've done the same thing too we've taken part of when we get together is, right, we're all about what I call CLOs, right? Being continuous learning organization. So what aspect of education are we bringing to that? So we've done it again, kind of like that spin-off on, are you going to love it or learn, leave it. We've talked about, are we going to learn it and earn it, right? And so somebody always has to come in a creative way, bring some education, something that they just learned, and do a presentation to the company. And there's been all sorts of fun things that they've done in that, right? We've invited customers, right? Customers to talk. So we just don't have our own internal. Other people, we've said, let's lay out our entire value chain, right? From our manufacturers to our distribution, to our competitors, to our customers, to our partnerships, to our defectors. And let's bring the best guests to represent those. And we brought those stakeholders into it. So, I mean, we've really kind of looked at it from that full value chain and brought the greatest people in. And again, and we've had fun things, and we've just done like spoofy things that were successful, whether we're in TV or animation or the movies, and we brought those ideas in. And that seems to be a lot of fun. People, it's like, what are they going to do next type of idea?
Well, I hear really like thinking about it like a production and experience, right? Bringing that together.
I always say we're producing an event. So what goes into producing? And you can imagine what, my buddy Rob Searcher and I, the kind of fun we have with that, where you kind of get really crazy creativity together. So anyways, those are my thoughts.
You are not allowed to speak more than 5 minutes without an interaction from the audience. Is it to do every 5 minutes to do some interaction, something to engage them in order to get to that they won't go asleep or start to look at their phones. So it's using the surveys and using the breaking rooms and using dialogue every 3 to 5 minutes, and people that don't interact to go, and since we have their names, we can ask them for opinions. So this is my every 3 to 5 minutes. It's not a monologue. I need people to interact. This is my method.
Breakout rooms. Big shout out breakout rooms, right? You get 4 or more people in a room and nobody talks. Everybody waits unless you've got like assertive coaches like us. But you've got to create openings for people. We also use Elmo that I learned from one of the other coaches. Elmo stands for enough, let's move on, like an acronym.
Nice.
Enough, let's move on. So if Elmo, and people will be talking and I'll like just put Elmo up and they'll be like, oh, I see Elmo. Maybe we should move on. And they get so engrossed in the conversation, they don't realize they're covering the same ground again and again. Oh, yes. And we bring in music as well with some of ours, right? Throwing in,
live
little
music.
Right? Huh?
Live music. Yeah, great live music we've had.
We pull right in stuff. I'll get bounced now for putting real music into the mix. Daniel, you were about to say.
And in the team, it's a lot of what you do on the session, but it's also what you do between sessions. As an example, in a daily huddle on Friday, we all came dressed up as Halloween. So we made a huge fun event in our daily huddle, had a lot of fun. Last week, we did a virtual escape room for the company. So we hired these people. They got us in Zoom, groups of 4 or 5, and they give you all these clues and puts videos and everything. And you have to get out of this virtual escape room. A lot of fun. We had to get out of an island. We've done cooking classes with the whole company. And one of our team member, we send a list of things they have to the list of ingredients. Everyone goes and buys them. And then on Thursday at 6 p.m., we all get to a Zoom with our families. And we have a cooking class. And then everyone puts the computer on the table and we all have dinner together with our families. We believe having the session Zoom or whatever, having it's fun is important, but also what you're doing in the middle or in the process that has that meeting being fun. We really believe that today everyone's working from home, everyone's remote. Having these kind of things that are not work-related are important. After COVID, just after March, we were having an employee that was having some issues. And one day he came to a meeting kind of with some drinks. And we said, let's all get a drink. So we all went and got a drink and all had fun for a couple of hours together. And people just let the stress go. And that was it. Instead of attacking him, we said, let's do it well. And we did it well. And now he's okay. He was having a hard week. So
I got one more surprising one. Get off Zoom. Have a phone call. I find a few of our teams, even if you're using Zoom or something else to schedule, maybe try audio only. It's nice to have the video when you need it, but sometimes you just want to hear someone. And I have over on the side here, a really, really comfy chair, and sitting here on camera all day with the lights on and exhausting sometimes. It's nice to go sit down and have a different kind of conversation. So maybe try something like that sometimes to keep it interesting and mix it up. I think the other thing that I had a CEO call me a few months ago and say, oh, my meetings suck and I'm really struggling. Why don't you just say that to the whole team? Because I bet everybody feels exactly like you do, but they're not nearly as empowered as you are to actually change it. So if you call it out, you give them room to have their experience. And sometimes just talking about it can make a difference.
And what can we do to make it better? And Bill, to your point too, you talk about the phone. That's what I tell my clients too. You don't have to always be right on the visual. And I go, and if you're within a geographic area where you can literally get together for a coffee and be socially distanced outdoors to have a cup of coffee, or there could be 4 or 5 of you, and again, you could be outdoors. There are still opportunities where you can safely do that face to face. So, just be a little bit creative.
We are definitely starting to do a few more of our meetings outdoors. We'll pick an outdoor space with some comfy chairs. We'll put some flip charts around and maybe get some shade or some heaters or that kind of thing and do it just like we're around a campground. It's really cool. It creates a cool environment to meet together in that kind of a setting where almost everyone is going to feel comfortable outdoors with a little distance, right?
My next session will be in the CEO's room house. So, sorry, she will host us there. Yeah, so we will have a session on strategy in her home. So it will be really nice. I believe in when someone hosts, when the CEO hosts his executive, it's such a good environment. It creates a great environment and openness.
Yeah.
So let's give a shout out to each of you. We've had a long conversation. Before I do that, a final shout out to one of the online tools in our world, the Scaling Up Scoreboard. So we've got a whole online tool to keep your team on track, to see how you're going on your quarterly plans and tracking against your long-term, your one-year initiatives, and your BHAG and all that. It's the Scaling Up Scoreboard. You'll find a link in the show notes, or you can go to Scaling Up and find that, or go to scalingcoach.com. Let's go around again. Let's start with Judy. Judy, how do people find you, and where do they get more information about your work?
They can find me. Go to my email at Judy at Guido Associates. That's GUIDOASSOC, or GuidoASSOC.com. But probably the best is Judy at GuidoASSOC.com.
Judy at GuidoAssociates.com.
Right. GUIDOASSOC.com, short for associates.
Daniel.
The Growth Institute, Daniel at growthinstitute.com, or come to the Growth Institute. We have a lot of programs to help teams execute better and reduce the drama. So, from mini lessons to very long courses. So we have courses from starting in half hour to help you do something like smaller, learn something small, or let's say short, or a 13-week scaling up program with all these companies together, up to our MBD, our 18-month program. And by the way, you can do this in combination and get a coach. So you can use the online learning with a coach as well. If you want a little assistance getting it through, can be done remotely. Daniel can recommend them to you, or you can come to us and we can put you into those courses as well. So combinations of coaching plus online learning. Liat, where do we?
Very simple, Liat Lazar. Search for Liat Lazar in the website, and you will find my website with my podcast and blog and the services that I'm offering. And call me.
Yes. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us this week. It's been a great show. We'll talk to everyone again. We'll see you again next week, and so on. Thanks again, everybody. Have a great week, great month.
Thank you. Take care.